Hiya, in this tutorial I'm going to show you something a bit different because I ain't got a clue what I'm doing in this one, but I'm showing you how to knit a small woolly hat. The reason for this is I'm taking part in the Big Knit this year, which is something that Innocent Smoothies put on every year, where they ask members of the public to knit these little tiny hats, and they get put on Innocent Smoothie bottles, and every time someone buys one in the shop, 25 pence goes to charity, and it's going to Age UK. I don't know if they do this in other countries as well or something similar, so if they don't, these hats make a nifty little egg cover. Like to keep it warm. Yeah, and I actually don't know how to knit properly. I read a book once, it was more of a magazine. Do you know, ones of those monthly subscription things that you sign up for and it teaches you a new craft or something? This one was how to knit. I got the first issue. I don't even know where it is now, but I remembered enough to make a hat. I can't follow instructions either, so I kind of made up this pattern myself, and I'm just showing you how to make one. And I hope I get the wording correctly. Some of the stitches I might be doing them wrong, I'm not sure, but if you're a knitter and you know and I'm doing something wrong, let me know. I can't even hold the needles comfortably. So this may not be the greatest tutorial, but I thought I'd put it out there anyway. So let's get cracking. So first of all, you're going to take your needles. These ones are 4mm needles. I assume if you do small or large ones that will affect it. And I've got some yarn here. Ain't got a clue what kind of yarn it is. It's just a I don't know, it just seems like every other yarn, so it's not particularly thick, it's not thin. So to start off with, I'm doing a slip knot, and this is to attach the yarn to the needle. I don't know if that's the right way of doing it, but that's how I do it. So that's going to be the first stitch, and now you're going to get the other needle and we're going to cast on. So you're going to put that needle in between that hoop you just made, so it's going crossways towards the back of the other needle, like this. And you can see there's a gap in between, and we're going to grab the yarn and wrap it around that back needle so it sits in between the two needles where that gap is, like that. And then we're going to bring that second needle down and we're going to catch it on that bit of yarn you just put there, and now that's on the second needle, but we want to transfer it onto the first needle. So the first needle we wrap around the back and then just hook it on, like that. Bad explanation, I know, but hopefully you can see this, even though it's slightly blurry. So again, go through the next hole, wrap it around so the yarn's in between, catch it on that second needle, and then wrap around the first needle to the back, go through to hook it on. So this is casting on, hopefully, and you want to do this until you've got 28 stitches on that first needle. It may not seem a lot, but once you start knitting it does look a bit wider. Remember, these are tiny hats, they're meant to be for smoothie bottles. So I know I'm holding the needles awkwardly as well, but just trying to show you. So this is what it looks like when it's done. So now we're going to do the knit stitch, which is similar to what you were just doing. Hopefully that's called the knit stitch. So you go through that first hoop, you wrap the yarn around like you did just a minute ago, hook it on again, and this time you just pull it off that first needle so the stitch stays on the second needle. And then we'll do that again. So you wrap it around, hook it on, pull that stitch off, and you want to do this all the way across. So if it's your first time doing it, it will be a bit fiddly. I've done it a few times now and I'm still finding it really fiddly. And you don't want to pull the yarn too tightly because you want really, really tight stitches. It makes it harder to work with. So this is what it looks like when it's done. Then you flip that over, so the full needle is always on the hand the opposite hand to what you use. I don't know, I'm right-handed and that's in my left hand. Yeah. So now we're going to do the pearl stitch, which is just opposite. So you put the needle from the front, going in through that way, and then you take the yarn, and now you're wrapping it through round the front needle. And then we're just going to catch that, put it through, and then pull off the first needle. So again, you go through the front, then you wrap this yarn around. I know I had a bit of trouble here because the camera kept getting in the way, I didn't want to hit it. This really is annoying when I couldn't do it. Because the camera was right in front of me, it was just awkward. And you're going to do this all the way to the end, and these are the only 2 stitches we'll be doing. So you'll be doing, the first row was a knit stitch, this is a pearl stitch, and just take your time, you don't want to pick up any stitches or drop any stitches. And then this is what it looks like when you've made it to the other end. And then again, now we're going to go back to the knit stitch. So again, this time the needle goes through the back, through that first hoop. And again, just do this until you get to the end. So now you've done a knit stitch line, a pearl stitch line, and now you're doing another knit stitch line. And this is pretty much what we're going to do throughout it. Just keep alternating between the 2. So once you finish that one, you then do a pearl stitch. So these 4, oh, I'm just repeating myself now, I know. Sorry. So it's like knit stitch, pearl stitch, knit stitch, pearl stitch. And then we're just going to change it up on the next line, so don't carry on. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you've done that. You can start seeing it taking shape. One side looks more like bricks and the other side has got the V's on it. So we've just done the pearl stitch, and now we're going to do another line of pearl stitching. This is just so it creates like a little rim at the bottom, so the V's and the bricks kind of switch round. I don't know if that's how you actually describe them, but that's how I think they look like. So we're going to do another line of pearl stitching. We just did a line of pearl stitching, we've flipped it over and now done another one. And this should reverse the pattern. So on this side you can see V's, and after we've done a few lines, it'll go into the brick stitch and the V's will be on the back of it. So we're going to do the pearl stitch all the way to the end, and then we're going to go back to doing the knit stitch, pearl stitch, knit stitch, blah 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 blah. Can't say it. Knit stitch, pearl stitch, and then alternating. Okay, so you want to do that like until you've got 14 lines of the second part of the knit stitch, pearl stitch. And then we're going to cut off some of the yarn. You want to leave quite a big bit of tail because we're going to sew this up. Now I'm not going to cast off with this, I'm just going to attach a needle to the end, and I'm going to take these stitches and hoop them onto the needle. I just find it easier doing it this way because if I cast off and then try and tie up the bit at the top, it comes out a bit more bunchy, and this is just simpler anyway. So I'm going to take the needle and thread it through each of the stitches. I may do it a couple at a time because I want to make sure I actually go through the stitches rather than accidentally through the wool. So when it's done, you just pull it really tight. Now this brick bit, I want to be on the outside. Eventually it's going to be the inside, but I want to sew up from the inside, inside out type thing. So we're just going to tie this off at the top, so that stays closed, and then I'm just going to do a really simple stitch to stitch these 2 sides together. And then when I'm halfway down, I'm going to pull that first tail up and stitch that in as well to keep that out of the way. And this is the basic hat shape done. So you want to tie that end off it back up a couple of stitches and cut off any excess. You're then going to turn this inside out, and then it's already taken a hat shape. And then all that's left to do is the pom-pom, or you could leave it like this if you don't want a pom-pom on top, but I always like a pom-pom on my hat. Now my pom-pom makers are all too big to make a pom-pom for this hat, so I've just got a piece of thread in between my fingers, and I'm wrapping more around 3 other fingers. Well, they're not 3 other fingers, they're the same fingers. I'm just going to wrap this around a few times, and I'm going to take that first bit of yarn, and I'm just going to tie that around quite loosely and just pull this off my fingers. You can use a fork actually, that might have been the right size as well. So I'm just going to pull that tight and then do another knot so it stays in place. And then I'm going to start trimming up to make a pom-pom. So first of all, I'm going to cut open all the hoops, and then I'm going to trim it down so it's nice and round and not all messy. Because I don't like the pom-poms being way too big, so I like to cut them down a bit, make a nice little small pom-pom, and then plonk it on top of the hat. So you want to leave those 2 end strands long, because that's what we're going to use to sew onto the hat. So we're just going to grab a needle so we can thread through those 2 end bits, and then all that's left to do is to tie this on. We're not going to do any more sewing, you just want to put it through the hat and then turn it inside out and do a couple of knots. And then all left to do is to cut off any excess yarn, and you're done. That's it. So hopefully you can understand this. As I said before, I don't knit. I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology, but I tried. I'm still learning myself. So thanks for watching. Bye!